Ready?
Yes, Crash, you look 10 out of 10.
Let's go.
-1.
Okay, welcome to my presentation on work experience. My name is Christian Bonser. Okay, so what I'm going to be discussing in this presentation are my various work experience placements. The three stations that I went to included Hot Radio, the local station for Poole and Bournemouth, Nerve Radio and Aspire Radio. Nerve Radio being the student station for Bournemouth University and Aspire Radio being located at Bournemouth and Poole College. So first of all, I'm going to talk about Hot Radio. It was the first professional station that I'd ever been to, and on the first day what I sort of did was, my supervisor was Jordan Clark, who presents the Saturday Stadium, and I sort of watched over him and shadowed what he did for the first day, so I could sort of get a feel for how a radio station actually works as a professional station, since I'd never been to one before. So that's what I did for the first day, as well as tweeting, which I'll come on to later. So whilst I was there, the things that I was entrusted with were the 1-minute pre-match reports that I had to do each week for AFC Bournemouth's upcoming opponent, editing the clips such as full town manager Tom Killock and Eddie Howe interviews to then be aired, using the station's Twitter account for the social media side of things, and also relaying the goals scored to the presenter, so they then be able to stay on air, keeping them up to date with team news, goal scorers, bookings, and basically everything that's happening in the games. So first of all, the pre-match reports that I was entrusted with. The first thing that I had to do was to obtain the information on the opponents that AFC Bournemouth were playing. The first time I did this, I had to write a script that was going to be 1 minute long to make it fit into 1 minute. The first time I did it, I said that today sees the highly anticipated game of AFC Bournemouth versus Blackpool. I thought that was alright at first, but I seemed to discover there were many flaws with that and many things that I could do to make that a lot better. After gaining feedback from my supervisor, Jordan Clark, I found a lot of things that I could have added to it. So in the end I found out I should say something more like, today sees the Cherries rather than Bournemouth, because it being the community station makes it more local, and sort of, it's listeners are familiar with who FC Bournemouth are, being a community station for Poole and Bournemouth. And then it also telling them that they're currently struggling side in 14th place, and then Blackpool, and then where they're located, their stadium, Bloomfield Road. So it's just sort of jam-packing that 1 minute with as much information as content as you can, is what I learned. And as for the script, I need to make sure it had no mistakes whatsoever, so I would do it before I went into the work experience on Saturday, and then would go over it with Jordan, and he'd point out any mistakes, anything that I might need to change. Practice read it myself, make sure it fit into 1 minute, and we've got 1 minute to relay the script. Then amend it, just in case there was anything wrong with it when going through with Jordan. Have a final check, make sure there were no mistakes, and then finally record it, pre-record it, and then have it put out to air, make sure it's up to a good enough standard to do so. As for using Twitter and editing clips, this was sort of my main role really whilst at the station, especially towards the end when, at first I was working with Jordan in the studio whilst he'd be doing the presenting, but recently he's come to get some new equipment where he can actually go down to the Poole town games and do live commentary of it. So someone else was presenting, and then I'd be there doing the Twitter account, and then relaying all the information to the presenter, and sometimes being entrusted with the decks and stuff like that, which was interesting because I've used 3 different types of decks now, the ones here, the ones at Nerve Radio, and then the ones at Hot Radio, and also getting used to Myriad was good, because the only times I've used it was at Aspire Radio here, but being able to use it at Nerve and at Hot Radio has certainly made me become more familiarised with it, sort of thing. The first thing I had to do was learn the code of the Twitter account at Hot Radio. Never using Twitter before myself, I'm only using Facebook. It was very new to me. And also they have a certain code of how to use Twitter at Hot Radio. It's very established in a certain way. And you know, so just practicing it over and over again, I found was the best way to sort of really get it, you know, into my head. The next thing I had to do was get familiarised with Adobe Audition. Never really used Adobe Audition before. It's usually just Audacity that I'd used. So that again was another entirely new thing for me. Editing the clips out, I had to do that on my first day. So getting the Eddie Howe clip and sort of editing to find the best bits, squeezing it all into a short amount of time so it's ready for an at a good enough standard to do that. As for the feedback gained from Jordan, once I'd done my 1 minute pre-match report, ready for it to be put out to air, things that I gained were that I needed to read at a slower pace. It didn't make it sound very natural, the fact that I was trying to squeeze all this information into 1 minute. So I was told I needed to read a bit, maybe a bit slower, animate my voice, so I'd like higher and lower the pitch, to make it sound more like natural and interesting as well, to keep the listener entertained. And it sounded too much like it was being read from a script, as it was, but apparently that takes time to sort of get into your brain that when presenting on radio, if you're reading from a script, you know, it comes naturally to you over a certain amount of time. But Jordan said to me that what he recommended was to imagine yourself in a pub talking with a friend, to make it seem as natural as possible. And obviously being football, it's sort of typical for being talked about in like a pub sort of thing. So yeah, it would be easy to relate it to the listener. As for Nerve Radio and what I did there, I didn't do Nerve during the first year of the university course. Mainly this was just because I found the course a little bit overwhelming, and didn't really think I had enough time for it. Also, I didn't really want to do I didn't think I was confident enough to do a show by myself straight away. Used to doing shows here at Aspire with other students, you know, help with my confidence, but then I noticed that with Nerve Radio a lot of people apply for solo shows, which I didn't think I was really ready to do. But during the second year I thought, okay, I'll try and do my football show. Then found out there was already a football review show on a Sunday with a person that runs Nerve, Sam Fowler, on a Sunday, 5 PM to 7 PM. And I found this very useful, doing it every single week. The people were always changing. I was always with Sam every week, but then also other people like John and Ross and David, other people who would come and do the show. It was always changing. This is a really good way of gaining new contacts and meeting new people. And also gaining confidence just from doing a show week in, week out. And then operating a new type of deck was different as well, and also helped with my confidence in the studio as well as presenting. And producing content for the show I was interested with as well. So I got to sort of try out lots of new things. For instance, new games and all sorts of content for the show that I wouldn't have usually done. Just sort of got to try it out and see what people thought. And from the feedback gained, Sam said he really liked the games I came up with. So yeah. As for Aspire Radio, the show that we did was only for a few weeks, but that went on from 9 AM to noon. I got to operate the decks, which was great because it got me to gain more confidence and make me more familiarised with it. Usually I would shy away from using the decks, but since it was early in the morning and I sort of knew that nobody was listening to Aspire at that time, I thought, well, if something goes wrong, it doesn't really matter as much, so I can just, you know, have a go and get more used to it, which was nice because I'm just used to presenting, so you know, being able to run the show myself was very nice at the same Being able to improvise as well, being that we did that, know that no one was going to listen, and also just being sort of a one-off show, we were able to improvise and sort of, do what we wanted. Often we'd find ourselves with no content, but it turned out to be a good thing because we could just sit there and talk, come up with something new. So that worked quite well. And obviously, sometimes not all of the group members showed up, so I had the opportunity to present alone, which put me on the spot, but at the same time it was quite interesting to see what it was like to be by myself, and I was almost like forced into doing it, so sort of like just did it, and it worked out quite well in the end. So these are the negatives and my plan in order to avoid them. I found that my sense of timekeeping was quite bad sometimes, one of my main downfalls. Not getting there on time and stuff like that. I figured that in order to avoid this, for just obvious reasons, go to bed earlier, set your alarm earlier, make sure you catch the bus. And then obviously being motivated as well. I found that, from the uni course and sometimes finding some of the assignments overwhelming, it was hard enough to sort of get motivated to come in and want to do a show and stuff like that. And obviously having all these different work experience placements, I was really motivated for places like Hot Radio, but then ones like Aspire, it was kind of like really early in the morning, getting here for 9 AM when you live all the way in Folkestone. Motivation was a hard thing to come by. I've got a couple of quotes here just to back those things up. What I gained from the work experience and the action plan. I feel that over the time of my different work experience placements, I've got a great understanding of how a radio station functions. I think Hot Radio helped me most with this, being able to see how Jordan ran the show and seeing all the other people in the studios, the different computers, the different faders, which I didn't even know about before. It was really interesting sort of to see how a proper radio station functions, having only been to student radio stations. Going to a professional station was really interesting. I think I've gained a lot of confidence from this, since you're just meeting new people all the time and they're sort of introducing themselves to you and you're having to introduce yourself to them. It just helps with your confidence, and then having the opportunity to present on these shows and gain content and do all these different things. Contacts being one of the best things gained from the work experience, meeting all the people at the different stations, like I said at Nerve, because the people who were presenting the show with me was changing every single week. It helped me to meet lots of new people and really made a difference in my confidence as well. And also I feel that my skills have certainly improved, certainly my presenting skills on the show. Being that it was a discussion show about football, it was definitely in my comfort zone and definitely what I wanted to do. People that we're working with were really happy and sort of nice to work with, and I got along with them really well, so that made it a lot easier. Editing, something that I hadn't really done a lot of before, certainly not for a radio show, but beforehand it would be sort of like the 30-minute pieces that we did on 15-minute pieces that we did in our first year, but sort of editing clips for the radio I'd never really done before. Also having to script, doing the 1-minute pre-match reports. I'd never done that before, so that was interesting to do. And then mixing and using the decks. And my action plan at the end of all this, and what I hope to sort of do next year, and in the meantime, is make a demo of good standard. So what I'm going to do in order to do this is get all the best bits from the shows that I produced. Also, I'm going to start going to the local games at Pooltown, Bashley, etc., and record either live match commentary of myself talking about it, but also getting interviews with either the players or the manager, and then using them in my demo, and then using them in other shows, and sort of getting the best bits and putting them down, making sort of a really good, interesting demo to listen to, and then send it out to different radio stations that I want to go to. And then I need to update and tweak the CV. My CV is pretty up to date at the moment. but sort of just tweak it, make sure it's all necessarily relevant. If there's any new stuff I've done, just add it. Yep, so that's for CV. And then I also need to go start going to local games to the practice the commentary, as I've said. And then what I hope to do at the end is to apply for Solent and hopefully gain a position there for work experience, because as I've had, Solent is one of the hardest places to get work experience. So that's what I hope to get from that. That is my bibliography, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, any questions about what you've been up to? No, good plan. I think Solent is a realistic destination for you because they do a professional version of what you're doing at the minute. So, well done. And we'll get you